Hey everyone, Glenn Sanford here, founder of eXp Realty. And today in this masterclass, we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and that is mind mapping for your business success. And why is it one of my favorite subjects? One, all the way back in 2009, actually before that, but in 2009, literally built the entire eXp business model on a mind map over the course of about 3 days. And it literally we put together the entire uh, we'll call it blueprint for the business using a mind map. And so what I'm going to walk you through, and the tools have changed. Back in the day when we built eXp initially, it was we used FreeMind and XMind. But now, and by the way, there's a bunch of newer tools that I'm not going to go over today that I've been playing with that actually uses and incorporates AI into mind mapping, which is pretty cool. I think quite frankly, takes me out of my creative mode by using AI, but it's pretty interesting to see, the ideas that AI will flesh out when you use AI to actually build out mind maps. But basically, and I'll go ahead and switch over here to our to a mind map. My platform, my go-to platform these days is MindMeister, and so this is my in my MindMeister account, and in it, you basically create your original thought. What are you actually building something around? And of course, today we're talking about mind mapping for success. So I'll start with just the basics of mind mapping. There's mind mapping, and when I think about mind mapping, you can certainly do this with pen and paper or pencil or a whiteboard or what have you, and kind of see how things hook together. Um, but with tools online and technology tools, it's actually easier to sort of lay out and design. By the way, we're visual creatures, meaning that we see things visually, and how things fit together visually orients our way of looking at the world. And they'll fit logical components in our mind. They'll fit emotional components in our mind. Uh, and the two sort of synergistically hook together to kind of create a new blueprint for whatever it is that you're thinking about. So you could be think about, how do I solve world peace? How do I bring recycling to my neighborhood if that's something that's important to you? In this case, we're going to talk about basically business planning for real estate professionals and using these mind maps. But the basics of a mind map is you've got kind of a central theme. In this case, mind mapping for success. And then you have things, and I used to use the tab key on MindMeister to type in, another thing relative to this mind mapping for success. So I'm just going to call it MindMeister, uh, and then I'm going to say tab for new child nodes, and enter is for sibling nodes. And I think these are technically correct in terms of thinking about it, but these are kind of the two basic concepts. And you could almost think about it and you can actually output this and export it into really a bullet point list. And another cool thing you can do, and I might even try to do this at the end of our session, is you can take your sort of exported bullet point list and you can import it into a platform like Gamma, which is now my new favorite tool for building out presentations quickly. But you can import it to Gamma with a little bit of prompting, and it will build you like a whole slide deck that goes along with whatever it is that you just did. So it's pretty cool. There's lots of tools for mind mapping. So tools for mind mapping. And of course, the one I'm talking about here is MindMeister. So I'm just going to drag that and put it in there. But there's tons of other ones. I'll put some of the old ones that I used mainly because they represent a little historic use of actually building out eXp. But what you'll notice is it's pretty easy to kind of add these sibling nodes, and then you can then go in and add whatever detail you want to put in it. And this one was Java based. The Xmind was a downloaded application, and in the case of MindMeister, it's an online app at https:// mindmeister.com. And you'll notice even cool things like that's actually a hot link, and so I can actually click on it, and it will actually didn't do what exactly I was hoping it would do, but let's share the tab instead. But the idea is some of these things will actually link out and be actually links to other stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. You can add notes. If I click on these little three dots, you can add connections, comments, notes, media if you want to attach like a YouTube video or those types of things and icons. And I would just say, that you can basically add a lot of content and make it pretty rich. So that's kind of the basics of mind mapping. And now what I'd like to do is, I'll jump in and kind of look at what would it look like to build a mind map for your real estate business. And when I think about mind mapping for a real estate business is you can map out kind of two things to map out. And one would be present state of the business or project or whatever, and the future state that you want to get to of the business. And the reason why I think these are important elements to think about is if you don't know exactly what the present state of your business is, then it's hard to know what you need to sort of do to get from your present state to your future state. And so owning, and this is kind of Zen-like, if you don't own the present state of your business and understand that you created a perfect version of a business based on your skills and ideas and training and whatever to this point in time, and that's perfect, it's perfect in its present state, but that doesn't change the fact that you can then move it to a future state by iterating on your business. And so I think about this idea that mind mapping will help you understand the disconnect, the cognitive dissonance between the present state of your business and the future state of your business. So that's kind of the way that I want to think about it. But why don't we go ahead and kind of build a new mind map? So I'm going to go ahead and go back to all my maps. I'm going to create a new blank map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a generic real estate agent business. And if we think about what are the concepts that go into a generic real estate business, and we'll just kind of map these out. One, there's some sort of marketing that goes into your business. So let's just create a marketing arm to this mind map. There's some sort of systems that go into it. Think CRM, and inside of that is your customer database, and potentially your follow-up campaigns that take place in your CRM. There's your team, scaling a team potentially, and let's just say that this is a team that or a business that you want to scale. Scaling a team. Who would be on your team? Maybe you do it in a more traditional manner and you bring on an assistant, and then you bring on more buyer's agents, and then eventually you bring on a listing specialist. So these would be people that you would bring in, and then one question that might come up is, how do I hire my first assistant? And one of the things you'll think about is a concept, and I'll just put is how might I, or how do I, are really good questions for mind maps to help you sort of solve for. So I'll just put this as questions to ask at the end of every node. And it would be something like, how might I do this? Or how might I do this better? Would be, or so how might I, or how might I do this better, are really great questions to ask at the end of every node. So how might I get a, or how might I get a better, or how might I improve? So how might I is such a powerful, how might I improve this role in the company? So I'll just use that. And this would be kind of, maybe you already have an assistant. One thing you might do is ask yourself, how might I improve this role in the company? And then you can sort of answer that question. So how might I improve this role in the company? And then answer the questions in a way that just naturally comes to mind. One way would be document what you want your assistant to do. Seems pretty obvious, but sometimes just writing that down now gives you a future to do to create a new future state of whatever that thing is. So in this case, document what you're, spend time with your assistant, uh, talking through what you feel is the important tasks to focus on each day. So this is another sort of thing that that you might answer, and your answers are going to be different based on your business, but this is kind of an idea of what you might do. And by the way, you can close these things up, because you may not need to dive into assistant hiring or those types of things. So how do I hire my first assistant? Um, One, maybe run a Craigslist ad. I'm just using that as an example. Another would be to talk to agents who generally are familiar with the business, but likely are more S and C's in the disc profile versus D and I's. So this would be, again, just some ideas, but you get to sort of see how you might use this. Maybe you've got your first assistant, and now it's no longer relevant. Well, you could delete that just by hitting the delete key when you highlight it, and you can always bring it back with a Command Z or Control C, depending on what you're using. But you can delete these nodes, and then you can sort of go back in time as well. So so that's a kind of a quick and dirty idea of sort of what this looks like. The same thing could be done here: is how do I find buyer's agents? Um, uh, how do I create accountability to, and I'll talk about this in a minute, our franchisable service model for our buyer's agents. And so might be going, what's a franchisable service model? Or so franchisable is a term that came out of Michael Gerber's book, um, uh, and which is the E-Myth Revisited, which is what's your franchisable model for customer follow-up or franchisable service model for how you do marketing, and how do you manualize it so somebody else can come in and get into that seat, and then give somebody that has an average person. Everybody has potential to be above average, but just the average person a tool to create above average results. And you think about, what does McDonald's do so well? Well, they provide a footprint, a playbook to give an average person, high school student, whatever, average person, um, uh, a playbook. Yeah, give a playbook to an average person that will produce above average results. And you can think about this into, how does your brand promise match up with your marketing? That would be a, or and then do you actually deliver on that? And then deliver on that with your team. So what you're seeing is me kind of have a general conversation with the mind map. Obviously, I'm doing all the typing, I'm doing all the questions, I'm presenting to you, and going through and building out what this looks like. So, marketing, systems, um, finance, HR, like these are all pieces, like, things that you want to think about. What are you using for an accounting system for your team? Um, uh, how are you putting money away for taxes? How are you paying your taxes? Um, these are all things that you want to understand. And if there's any ambiguity around things, create a way to, what I call, process it out. So another great use of a mind map is actually build a little Kanban board. And Kanban is a term that was taken to Japan after World War II, and it was really to teach people sort of how to work as small teams to get things done. And it came out of sort of manufacturing, but it works really well it's now transferred itself to agile software development. It's transferred itself to high velocity teams, and it's a take on David Allen's Getting Things Done, which obviously came after Kanban. And then another guy that I really like, Jeff Sutherland, wrote the book Scrum: The Art of Doing Twice as Much in Half the Time. So Kanban, or Scrum board, is backlog slash tension. There's next actions, or next sprint, so to speak. There's doing and done. So let's just say that one of your tensions is, how am I paying how am I, because this is probably you writing it, I planning on paying taxes. Exciting subject. And so, and you think about, okay, some percentage, 20% of all commissions that come in go into a tax account automatically. So that might be something that's an important piece. Another piece, and I'll go back to finance because I think it fits in here as well, is this idea of having a S corp or an LLC. That would be another one that I would think about. Another one, and this could fit in both finance or in HR, but let's just put it in HR, um, um, be on salary. And let's just assume right now that you're not on salary. You might want to actually create a tension around that, which is, how do I get on salary with my own company? Um, what would that look like? And and let's say, take a route that I took early on, which is uh, interview some payroll management companies to outsource payroll to. Um, and it sounds kind of goofy, potentially, but if you think about it, if you're building a real business, what do real businesses do, and what do they look like? And that, again, that's a great question. What do businesses look like that function well? So a great question. And it comes down to some of the stuff that we're already doing is that it builds out effectively a business plan. In fact, if you've taken the time to write a business plan, it's probably one of the most grueling, um, hard things to actually complete. Meaning you're going through and you're building out, target market, you're working on, you're writing down your marketing plan, you're building a spreadsheet, you're doing all these various things. A lot of times when you write a business plan, it's to fundamentally raise money and to prove to somebody else that you know what you're talking about. In real estate, the only person that needs to know what you're talking about is you. And and why that's an important concept is mind maps provide the generalized framework to let you know you're on track without you having to go into this really robust, verbose description of your business and all the other things that go along with it. Um, Another thing you think about here is goals. So we've got marketing systems. Let's just put goals here. Um, Goals. Under goals, what are your long-term goals? What's your medium-term goals? What are your short-term goals? And 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 so long-term, maybe this is 5 to 10 years out. I want a business that supports me and my family, um, uh, and sets up a legacy um, for all. And so, and then you can then define that, what that means to you. Maybe it means having $5 million in the bank, liquid. Um, Maybe it means having a $20 million net worth. Uh, and for some of you, you may be going, wow, that's a lot. That's crazy what that is. But the flip side of it is you get to choose whatever long-term goals you want to have. It could be the types of vacations that you want. It might be the type of time you get to spend with your family. You can just determine what are your long-term goals. I picked financial ones because they're very um, they're logical in that they're very measurable. Like, you either have 5 million in the bank or you don't have 5 million in the bank. You either have a $20 million net worth or you don't have a $20 million net worth. But long term, you could say this is uh, in 10 years. Here's the thing. So I want this and I want this. Having a 20 million. So in the short run, you might not have much, but you think about, in the short run, maybe you take a snapshot, um, and you think about your snapshot of where you're at right now. Yeah, snapshot of where you are right now. Again, this is a pretty important concept when you think about goal setting, because if you don't know where you are, then it's hard to actually figure out how you get to where you want to go. So snapshot right now is maybe you've got you know you know 6,000 in the bank, and net worth is with credit card debt is a negative 20,000. By the way, I'm just using that because there's actually a lot of people that 6,000 might be generous, but their net worth maybe negative 20 because of various different things, and they need to figure out, how do I make sales in the short term. I want to, and let's say this is uh, you know 3 to 6 months, or we could go 3 months, 6 months, and then maybe 1 year. Maybe it's, or this is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. This kind of defines your trajectory from going from where you are now to where you want to be in the future, and what do you need to do in the short term in order to kind of get there. You need to make one sale per month, and then in 6 months, maybe your goal is to make two sales per month, and then maybe in 6 months, instead of 6,000 in the bank, you have maybe it's still 6,000 in the bank. So bank account is still 6,000 liquid, but maybe your net worth is, maybe it's now $10,000. So you could sort of think about, what does this look like, at 3 months, 6 months, maybe, 3 months, you're at one sale a month, you still got 6,000, and maybe your net worth is now zero, so you're pulling ahead. But eventually you start to think about, okay, net worth after 1 year is 50,000, let's just say. And by the way, I don't think these are numbers that I could certainly see somebody sort of achieving, depending on how they think about it. After 2 years, they want their net worth to be at least 200,000, and after 3 years, they want their net worth to be, let's just say it's 400,000. So, but long term, in 10 years, you can start to think about, okay, I went from 2 to 50 to 2 to 4 to maybe year 3, it's 8, and then year 5, maybe you're at one and a half. Year 6, you're now at 2 to 3, and you think about what are those goals, and then also think about what would you need to do to get there. Um, this comes back to marketing. So now that you've got some goals laid out, what type of marketing do I need to put in place to achieve my goals? What type of marketing do I need to achieve my goals? And what you'll also notice is that because of the way this is laid out, I can move around fairly rapidly to various different parts of the mind map. And one of the cool things about mind maps is that as you clarify one area, it will help you clarify another area, and you'll start to actually sort of dive into and start to think about, okay, well, what type of marketing do I need in order to make, let's just say, 2 sales a month, or in 6 months, in 1 year, maybe you need to be doing 4 sales per month, and maybe you build your first business plan is based on first year goals, based on year 1 goals. You sort of work backwards. Okay, if you're doing internet let's just say the type of marketing that you're doing, or let's just do types of marketing, types. Uh, and I'm adding these extra things because you would just go straight to the types of marketing. You'd probably skip these extra steps, but I'm doing it for the purposes of doing the mind map. So types of marketing might be PPC, social, and then maybe it's open houses, and then maybe it's uh, uh, networking events, and then you start to go, okay, there's types. Now you go, okay, I'm seeing a couple different types of, I'm seeing IDX, and um, you know, websites, or let's just use these for the moment. Well, two of these are online, and two of these are offline. And so I maybe take PPC. So PPC stands for pay per click. Online, you've got social, you've got IDX. So this is kind of your website piece. So and this is generating sort of inbound, and then maybe you're going. There's other types, which is um, buyer lead generation, and seller lead generation. These are going to be two types of things that you want to generate. Your your seller lead gen is, let's just say, is generally more offline than online. Your buyer lead, oops, the unhandled response, something happened. So your buyer lead is going to be generally online versus offline. So so these are, so you can kind of, again, generally offline versus online. So I'll just put that in. So, what are going to be those offline strategies? Circle prospecting, door knocking, following up on open house conversations. So these may be things that you do that are more seller lead gen. Online, again, this is going to be your PPC, your social, your IDX strategies. And you can also, I think you can do like what's called a connector here. I'm just going to connect this here to here. So it's really the online. I can do some cool additional sort of stuff to sort of show where it kind of sits in the whole scheme of things. And I could, generally move my offline to here, and let's just move this down here. And so my offline is kind of the circle prospecting, and I can sort of point this, so to speak, do a little connector again. Again, this is if you're having trouble sort of figuring out, how things sort of relate to each other. You can sort of draw these lines and kind of point at various parts of the mind map. You think about CRM, maybe systems. You've got systems, CRM, accounting, marketing, and then human systems, which would be, sort of the franchisable service models. And this might include a some sort of buyer manual, buyer's agent manual, and seller's agent manual, and assistant manual. And then you may even link to these. Again, sort of just kind of going through here, you can paste a link to maybe your assistant manual that you've got in Google Drive, or maybe you attach it through a PDF or something like that here, as a way to just build it out and actually have real sort of related content to this particular subject. So as you build this out, your business will become more and more obvious about what it is. Like when you describe, like on CRM, you've got customer database, follow campaigns, but what CRM? Like you will list, you'll list a ton of them. Like you may go, I could have KV Core, I could have Lofty, I could have Commissions Inc. I might be working with real estate webmasters. Um, it could be, any number of sort of these different follow-up boss. So, this could be CRM from a marketing standpoint, systems wise. You might be in there using Google AdWords. You might be doing Facebook ads, Instagram, Graham. Some of it may be paid and unpaid. So, paid, Google AdWords, Google AdWords would go into paid, Facebook ads would go into paid, but social, maybe things like, your Instagram, your Facebook, your YouTube, your LinkedIn strategies, etc. And as you build it out, again, you figure out, how do I do AdWords? So you start to think of, okay, I've got my goals over here, but one of your backlot items might be learn Google AdWords. By the way, I think every real estate agent should learn how to run their own Google AdWords campaigns. It takes a little bit of time to figure it out, but the value and the ability to put your business onto like a spigot and turn up or down your marketing is pretty amazing to do. But let's just say you've got Google AdWords. One way is to do it yourself, DIY, do it yourself, manage your own campaigns. But let's say you don't want to do that. You look at who could do this for me, who I want to outsource. One would be MIR, making it rain inside of eXp. That's what that does. Or there's Ylopo, is another one, and then there's other companies that will do it. I think the best ROI, quite frankly, will come from making it rain. But you can outsource these types of activities as well. Facebook, unpaid. There's tons of strategies that you can use on social. What are those strategies? Figure those out for you. What are the types of content you're building, and just one, document it, but then also the other part is do it. I think about the idea that you need a certain percentage of your time to be documenting your systems, especially if you're changing up or your systems aren't working well. So document what it should look like so that your team can execute against it. And while you're building systems and you're doing your business, think about an 80-20. 80% of your time's doing the business, in the business. 20% of your time is working on your business, which includes mapping out what your business looks like in its present state and map out what you believe it should look like in its future state, and then build some sort of structure of moving from your present state to the future state. So hopefully this has been a valuable exercise to sort of understand what mind maps are, how they work. These are, I think about this idea that you need to be able to trust the systems that you're building on. And in the way so mind map are a tool that I use that I can go back to and reference when I'm building things out to, and I can give it to my team. If I've got an assistant, it's a way to take something, give that to them. You're not filling in all the gaps, but you're providing enough information around what you're trying to achieve that other people can jump in and kind of help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. Um, Again, this wasn't meant to be comprehensive as to what a real estate agent's business looks like. You could build each one of these out as its own thing. And there's a kind of a cool way you can do this in using mind maps is I can actually do. I think there's a link here which is um, create as a map. So hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to actually create it as a map, and I'm going to create a systems map. And I'm going to go to the systems mind map, and now I can actually build a mind map specifically for my systems, and then I can actually go back to the main mind map that came from, which is the what we call it the generic real estate business. So there's some cool things that you can do with MindMeister. Uh, you can sort of see this automatically sort of color codes them based on the various different functions. And in the course of a few hours to a few days, you could build a really robust platform to build whatever it is that you want to build. Ask the questions that you need to ask. A lot of times, it's really asking the questions that we a lot of times avoid asking for whatever reason. We do that on a mind map. Get transparent, get real, talk about what's working, what's not working. Do a SWOT analysis. Mind maps are a great way to do a SWOT analysis. So um, I'm gonna, SWOT analysis. So if I go SWOT analysis, by the way, you should, in my opinion, you should do this, but strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You should do a SWOT analysis on your business. What strengths, a lot of times these come from who you are as a person. What are you really good at? I'm a great salesperson. Great salesperson. Weaknesses. Um, my organization skills are 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 where I'm weak, and this would be a typical salesperson profile. But taking the time to actually map this out. What's my opportunities um, uh, to dominate my local farm area or city? That'd be another one. And then what's the threats? Could be industry changes. We're living right through that right at the moment. It could be competitors knocking off your business plan. Um, you know, these could be threats, but if you understand what your threats are, then you can go back to, okay, how do I sort of compete with that? How do I solve for each of these things? How do I solve for industry changes? When you understand your strengths and weaknesses, and then how and these ones, your opportunities and your threats are going to be the ones that you're going to probably do deeper mind maps on, because they then help clarify what you're going to do next. So with that, I think we went, 30, 40 minutes kind of talking through this whole idea of what does it look like to kind of build a business using a mind map. Hopefully you found this to be a valuable uh, exercise to just see a mind map in action, just hear, how I kind of talk through it. Obviously when I'm doing it myself, I'm bouncing these ideas out quickly. There's some data. People who mind map well outproduce those who don't mind map by a pretty good margin, like 2 to 1. It's because it gives them a tool that allows them to sort of see gaps in their business models and be able to then iterate on those quickly and do it with clarity. And it's a really easy, fairly intuitive way to take what's already in your mind, since hence the term mind mapping, and then just getting it into a place that you can reference and then massage into what it is that you want to do in the future. So um, again, thanks for jumping on to this masterclass. Hopefully, you got a lot of value out of it, and you know, I'm sure I'll be sharing more from time to time. And feel free to, if you got a question, send it over. Hopefully, if I've got time, I'll try to answer or provide some additional resources or feedback on it. But you know, take advantage of this and all the other classes that are taking place in the master classes. We've got amazing leaders, agents, brokers, staff, people who've done things in really creative and unique industries. And if you just continually learn and apply, you can't not but succeed. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks again, Glenn Sanford, founder of eXp Realty.